Young ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all from your respective places. Once again, you are welcome here on the platform for Awakening Consciousness. In the international news headlines, here is the president, the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, the very one who graciously agreed to host on his territory and serve as a mediator in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the same Erdoğan who made it so that Macron experienced hell for a few seconds when he grabbed his hand. Did you see the videos? Recep Erdoğan has just bitterly observed the West's determination to continue the conflict, since the negotiations are taking place on his soil, and he hears a lot of things. In the end, he decided to break his reserve, his silence. He has just made a sensational statement that echoes in the ears of Westerners like rumbling thunder. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan did not beat around the bush. He told the Europeans and Westerners in general some hard truths, whether anyone likes it or not, since for him it's not his will, it's not his pleasure to see that the negotiations failed in 2022. In 2025, we start again. If it fails, someone is responsible for it. And those responsible are the Westerners. But in his statement, he didn't mention anyone by name. And beyond what he said, Maria Zakarova, the spokesperson for Russian diplomacy, also spoke out. She threw a wrench into the Westerners' plans. Ladies and gentlemen, in this video conference, we are going to talk about what Recep Tayyip Erdoğan had to say and what Maria Zakarova had to say. But before we continue, I ask you to share the video conference. It needs to be shared as much as possible. Share it in every group you can. And above all, give it lots of likes. Lots of likes. That's it. Give it lots of likes. So, here is what Recep Tayyip Erdoğan says. He says the conflict in Ukraine cannot have a military solution. There cannot be a military solution. This is what the Turkish president declared to journalists. According to him, to end the war, weapons must fall silent and diplomacy must take the floor. The weapons must fall silent and diplomacy must take the floor. He goes on to say this: it is impossible to end this conflict through military confrontation, through weapons. This is what he emphasized. He continues by saying, these negotiations should become an important step that will ultimately pave the way to peace. Here is what he said in a parable. But when he says that the conflict in Ukraine cannot have a military solution, he is speaking directly to the Westerners who have said that Ukraine must be in a position of strength. Russia must be forced into peace. And forcing Russia into peace, that has always been repeated. Sorry, but repetition is educational. I am an educator. Forcing Russia into peace means using force. And that is exactly what even the Westerners are preparing for. We have seen Germany and the United Kingdom getting ready to produce a missile that would be capable of striking over 2,000 kilometers away. A long-range missile. We have seen Germany decide to rearm itself, granting a colossal budget to its military in order to deter. We see that France, despite its limited resources, has decided to double its order and production of Rafale, the famous aircraft it relies on. But India, which was one of the biggest clients, used it in Pakistan, and India saw that it's like cardboard. The Europeans are getting ready. That's why Russia is also preparing for a confrontation. In fact, these days, Russia is preparing a major offensive. And if this offensive takes place, it will be truly terrible in Ukraine. And that's why Recep Tayyip Erdogan continues by saying, that to end this war, the weapons must fall silent. Some, certain commentators on current events from the Western side are starting to say no. He is actually addressing Vladimir Putin's Russia. Because the West already wants a ceasefire, but Russia does not. Careful, that's not the case. The West does not want a ceasefire. The West wants a short pause to allow the West to rearm Ukraine, which is struggling. Because as long as the fighting continues, it is difficult to rearm Ukraine. And automatically, Russia gains the upper hand. Russia really keeps annexing a lot of territory. That's why Russia has so far refused a ceasefire. But yesterday, Russia agreed to a ceasefire on one condition, that Ukrainian soldiers withdraw from 4 Ukrainian regions. And the Ukrainian delegation considered this unacceptable yesterday. So, he says, Recep Tayyip Erdogan says that these ongoing negotiations under his mediation should become an important step toward finally paving the way for peace. If he says that, it means it's no longer becoming one. What is preventing these negotiations from finally opening a path to peace? It's because others believe that confrontation is necessary to force Russia to its knees. So, that was on one side. On the other side, Maria Zakarova, the spokesperson for Russian diplomacy, lays everything out. Maria Zakarova directly denounces the destructive role of the Kiev regime and its Western supporters in escalating the conflict. It's them. So Zakarova aligns herself with Erdogan in always pointing the finger at the West. He says that the West and Ukraine have made themselves champions in escalating the conflict, made champions in violating the truces that were agreed upon, champions in sabotaging historical memory since on May 9th. There were bombings on the outskirts. According to her, yes, it's not over. They are the champions of the excessive militarization of Ukraine. She says that they have militarized Ukraine. According to her, peace is nothing but an empty slogan for those who arm and manipulate Ukraine from the shadows. Peace is just an empty slogan. And that's why Erdogan says, for peace to come, the weapons must fall silent. So that's obviously what she said. And then she asked a question, right? She says, in your opinion, is the European Union really defending peace, or is it fanning the flames of an international conflict? So, it's up to you to answer Zakarova's question. She says, in your opinion, is the European Union really defending peace, or is it fanning the flames of an international conflict? That's the question she asked. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was the top international news story. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I'll be back with more news for you shortly. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.